Could you start filming, please? Welcome to Hashtag Wednesdays Weekly, a weekly training and information session facilitated by Action Together in collaboration with the voluntary sector and our public sector partners. Today we have Aneeqa Javed from the National Lottery Community Fund on a session on the Coronavirus Community Support Fund. Over to Aneeqa.
Thanks. Hi guys. I'm just going to share my screen so you can see the presentation. Everyone see that? Fine.
Yeah, we can see it.
Cool. So I'm going to be talking about the Coronavirus Community Support Fund. And this fund is in conjunction with the government. The money is from the government. We're not currently distributing any lottery money for the time being. I'm going to try and minimize the amount of time I'm talking to you, so we've got more time with the Q&As, because I know I've spoken to quite a few of you already about this fund, so we'll try and make it as interactive as possible and me not talking to you too much. So we're going to have a quick look at what we want to fund, who we can fund, and how you can apply. So just a little bit about the CCSF funding. It is currently the only main source of funding available through the National Lottery. So there's no normal awards for all or reaching communities, and we're not accepting non-COVID-19 applications at the minute. This could change and it's under constant review. There is a potential end date for this programme, but that's not yet been confirmed by the government. But we will give you notice before that ends. But I would just encourage you, if this is something that you are looking to apply for, to get it in as soon as possible. Beyond this response, we'll be having probably a longer term rebuild and recovery phase for the sector. Like I said, it's going to be reviewed on an ongoing basis as well, and we'll always share updates on our website, and always, as your local FO, I'm always here if you want to chat about anything as well. So it was launched in May, and we primarily looking to fund activities supporting people and communities affected by COVID-19, but also we're looking to support organisations who are in financial difficulty as a result of COVID. So whether that be topping up your reserves or filling a funding gap due to you being able to, you had to stop room hire, etc., and things like that. We can only fund for up to 6 months at the minute, and it's for up to £100,000 as well. And our focus is on small and medium-sized charities, but we would consider larger charities if the need was there. There is a high demand for this funding, extremely high demand, I think more than we anticipated, and we've already had to make some really tough choices. It's really heavily oversubscribed, so just please bear in mind that although you are applying, it's the same goes as any reaching communities. There's competition and there's not going to be any guarantees right up until the end panel. It's also important to ask only for what you need, and just bear in mind the kind of need and the budgets that we have for each locality. It's also important to bear in mind that when you're applying for project costs, take into consideration the needs of your organisation as well. So I've had quite a few organisations where they've come in for project costs, but actually the priority area is to cover their core costs for the next 6 months, because that's where the gap is. So just prioritise your needs and make sure you ask for anything that you need, and don't be scared to ask if an amount's what you need and you think it's too much. That's what you need, if that's going to fill you for the next 6 months, and we can always have that conversation about whether you want to bring the budget down. So who can apply? So you can only apply once for this emergency funding, whether that be Awards for All or this Reaching Communities version. You can apply if you've got an existing grant with the lottery. If you've got an existing Reaching Communities grant with us, your request is less than 10% of Northwest, and that doesn't have to go to any panel, and we can just give you that through your current grant. So you can apply if your organisation is a voluntary or community organisation, registered charity, community group, not-for-profit, CIC, so all the normal eligibility stuff. We can fund partnership applications. I'm so sorry about that noise. That's my building work. Anyway, let me know if you can't hear me and I'll try and move rooms. So you can apply as a partnership. If you are the lead partner of a partnership application, you can't apply again by yourself. But if you are a delivery partner as part of that partnership, then you can apply. So as long as you're not the lead partner, you can apply again. Who can't apply? So there's a slight difference with the government money about who we can't accept applications from. So as per usual eligibility criteria, with the exception of we can't fund schools or statutory bodies. Usually we can, it's something we can consider, but under the government money we can't. We shouldn't be paying for consultants and bid writers. And if, as always, if you need support, approach Action Together or any other support organisation to help with that. So I'll talk a little bit now about the kind of priorities that we expect applications to meet. So as you know, under normal reaching communities, we have 3 priorities, which I always ramble on about, and making sure that your application is hitting one of those priorities. So for the COVID funding, we're looking at prioritising 3 things. So firstly, the organisation supporting people and communities who experience disproportionate challenge and difficulty as a result of the crisis. So given the disproportionate impact that COVID has had on some communities, we are looking to prioritise support to those people and communities most affected, as well as organisations led by people from the community. So we're still looking at people in the lead. Obviously, we recognise that that's not going to be as in-depth. You know, it's emergency funding, it's a response to something, so we don't always expect community consultation to have taken place beforehand. But some kind of lived experience, or kind of the higher up senior management kind of lived experience, people in the lead kind of aspect, and just making sure that you can maintain that throughout. We're also focusing on specific beneficiary types to help address existing inequalities, which I'll go into in a bit. The second priority we will be looking at is organisations providing services and support for vulnerable people, for which there will be increased demand as a result of COVID. So examples like food bank, domestic abuse charities, mental health charities. So we focus on specific issues that have been exacerbated or arisen because of COVID-19. And the final priority is groups which connect communities and support communities to work together to respond to COVID-19. So this category is more for infrastructure organisations, support organisations, which we cannot fund through the government money. They have explicitly said that that's not something they're looking to fund. So if an infrastructure organisation or similar organisation came to us, we would look to assess that under the normal lottery money. Of course, we understand that organisations are facing varied challenges in response to the pandemic, so we are looking at new income generating plans, digital data and technology capabilities, and work that's gearing you back up to face the new reality of what might be the new normal. And as always, support is available from Action Together, and also myself. I think the important thing to say probably at this stage is I've probably worked with a lot of you already, and we've had quite in-depth conversations, and I've been able to support you quite heavily on applications. But I think it's important to note that with this fund, because of the sheer volume of applications we're getting through, I'm not able to give that much support that I'm normally able to give. That's not to say I won't ask you for any information that's missing. If I'm assessing an application and there's parts missing that I really need to get it through, then I will give you a call, and we can discuss that. But it's important to stress that you do only get one chance. And I know, because I'm not used to saying that, it seems really harsh. So I do struggle with that a little bit, but I will try and kind of help you as much as I can, but just appreciate that because of the volumes that we are getting, it's just not going to be as in-depth as we used to, basically. So what we want to fund. So I think one of the big things for us as a funder, and something that I'm a part of, is equity, diversity and inclusion. So we've got a group within the fund that kind of looks at, gives a second eye over applications to make sure that we are prioritising those kind of groups. So we'd like to encourage applications from organisations that support the list that you can see on the slide there. So BAME communities, disabled, older people, carers, sex workers, LGBT communities, migrants and refugees, all those kind of people who might be experiencing some inequality, either exacerbated by the crisis or has been newly arisen. And we're also looking to support organisations led by lived experience and the issues they're trying to address, which is something that's always been embedded within the fund, and something that we're always kind of looking to support. As always, but I think taking into account the different ways of working as a result of COVID-19, we're not always in the office anymore, and we're not always going to be at our place of work. We need to make sure that you have the right policies and practices in place. So as it says there, the NSPCC have a lot of advice and policies in place, templates and things that you can have a look at. But we will be asking you whether you have those policies in place and whether they've been adapted to your current situation, whatever that might be. And you obviously must comply with our safeguarding policy as well, which you can view on our website, I think. So what you can spend the money on, again, all the usual eligibility criteria is available on our website. That all still stands. But like I said before, it doesn't have to be focused on a project, this funding. We are looking to support your financial health, like I said, topping up reserves that you've had to use in the past 3 months, and we're happy to top up reserves as per your reserves policy. That can be a route you go down. Changing situation with social distancing requirements, flexible approach, need to have rather than to nice have. So we're looking at projects that are an immediate response, and there is an immediate need, and there's an immediate need to save you as an organisation. So we're not looking at kind of things that would be nice to have, and that's the kind of phrase we use. But we're looking at things that are really a priority for the community that you serve, and there needs to be a strong rationale about why you want to return to face-to-face activity as well, and obviously with the measures put in place. And because of sort of the uncertainty around what the next stage is going to be, and we appreciate that as well. So even if you might plan to do some face-to-face activities, but it turns out when you've been awarded that that's not something you can do, and we're always going to be flexible in that way. So that's important to bear in mind as well. So the kind of stuff that we can fund: your organisation's running costs, essential items for food banks. It's important to note that we won't fund food banks alone. We will fund food banks as part of a wider project. So if a food bank is part of something else that you're doing, for example, one-to-one support, counselling or whatever, then that's something that would be interested in. Small refurbishment projects that can be delivered within guidelines. Again, this has been a difficult one, because although some refurbishments and capital projects can be done with a pretty quick turnaround, we would want to see the impact of that pretty much straight away. And given that you have to apply for that you have to spend the money within 6 months of it being awarded to you, the likelihood of your capital project being done, ready, all the safety measures put in place is unlikely. So unless you can prove that, or evidence that it will be done within the next 6 months, and the impact will be seen straight away, it would be interested in that. We'll be looking at staff costs, training costs, and all the usual stuff that we fund. Like I said before, we'd encourage you to think about your organisational costs and the needs of that to help your organisation and your community through the crisis. So although you might want to deliver a project, but also you might be struggling to fill a gap in funding, prioritise that funding gap. I think it's important to stabilise your organisation in this most uncertain time as much as possible, and then be ready to be able to deliver the project. Also, we can fund PPE, but we won't fund it in massive kind of bulk buys. We'll also fund adaptations to building to meet social distancing standards. However, if those adaptations are just to meet social distancing guidelines and won't have any use afterwards, then we would question that. So we want to see a more longer term impact as well. So what you can't spend, what we can't fund, so just all the normal stuff really. I think that we've always not been able to fund alcohol, contingency costs, profit making, overseas travel, statutory activities. Like I said before, large requests for PPE and cleaning and adaptations. We don't want to see large requests, minimal as possible. I think part of that is government policy as well, that they have to provide that. So to apply for the funding, we'll quickly rattle through this. Have a look at our website. All applications should go through the website unless you have a specific communication requirement, just because the way the government kind of wants the information, we need to have everything in writing and everything online and ready for it to be audited. So the information you need to apply, I've just quickly listed some there, but it'll say it online as well. So contact details about your organisation, and there are a few questions there about your project or your any liquidity issues that you might want addressing. Like I said, we do look for people in the lead. However, we are realistic about how much of that can be achieved right now. So we're all looking for more about an overall organisational approach. For example, community engagement, things like that, things that might have done in the past that have kind of given you an idea of what your service users want. So if your application is eligible and fits with our priorities, once you've applied online, you'll receive an email asking financial questions and more stuff about the budget as well. And then that's once we have all that information. I've listed a few of the questions there. But once we have all the information in your application, we'll process through 3 different processes. So in terms of panels, once I've got your financial information, once I get to assessing your application, once I've done the assessment, it'll go to the local team. So as always, it'll go to the Greater Manchester team in this case, and they will decide whether they're supportive of your application or not. Then it will go to an England-wide panel in the National Lottery. Those happen twice a week, so it won't be far off until it goes there. And then recently, government have added a 3rd step. So the final step is for your application to go to a DCMS panel. So the government will be having a look at applications. But it's important to note that they don't, although we have influence over the decision, they do have the final say. It's very rare they change our decisions, but we just have to make you aware that it's a possibility that it could go to DCMS for a quick review. Current waiting time for a decision is approximately 6 weeks. Now that's arguable. I think at the beginning of all this, we could turn around applications within 4 or 5 weeks. I think now everything's kind of speeding up and people are getting applications in quicker. It is becoming a little bit longer. So I know I've still got a couple of applications from, I see a few people here that I've still got in my pipeline. So I will get to you. You are on the radar, and it'll never get lost. It's just that I've got a backlog of applications to deal with as well. So that's the process. Last slide and then I'll shut up. If you're successful, we will send you an offer letter by email. Nothing's done through post. It'll be done within a week, and we expect you to start your grant within 1 month of the date on your offer letter. The way we pay your grant is in full, in one payment the week of your start date, whatever start date we decide. In terms of monitoring, the government will be carrying out an evaluation of the programme using an external agency. So we're not sure what that's going to look like yet, but we'll be managing this piece of work once we know what it looks like. So I don't have much more information on that, I'm afraid. So once we kind of get, it's probably going to be September, you know, when grants start to come to an end, where we'll have a better idea. We will get in touch with you near the end of your funding. So at the minute, I'm saying to groups after 4 months, we can have a catch up, see where things are at, if things are going well, whether we need to change anything, and just to see kind of what difference the funding has made, and what kind of stories you have to tell, and just the normal stuff that we look for. Also, I forgot to mention, we do pay you in one full payment. The only instance we wouldn't do that is if your grant is deemed high risk, which is very rare, in which case we'd do 2 payments. But that can be discussed at your grant setup stage anyway. I think I've covered everything there. So as always, find out more on our website, call our advice line, just call me directly. I think most of you I'm in touch with, or email us at Northwest Team, and there'll always be kind of updates on our website as well. Thank you. That's it for me.
Brilliant.